This week on Two-Faced Wrestling Talk.
We are back from Baltimore, but the fallout from Full Gear continues. After his insane match against Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley looks for his next challenge and finds it in someone just as crazy. Meanwhile, other battles from Full Gear spill into Dynamite. We will break it down and hear from some of the stars of AEW, courtesy of WrestlingNews.co. In our second segment, we'll look at other promotions. In NXT, the teams and matches are coming together for War Games and Survivor Series. We will discuss why one reunion from PWG has us particularly excited. In WWE, there was a shocking return on, of all shows, Backstage. Plus, the Lana Rusev storyline continues to sink to new depths. Plus, Kelsi shares her tweet of the week. It's all coming up next.
Two-Faced Wrestling Talk, the podcast that goes beyond WWE and goes in depth on NJPW, AEW, ROH, PWG, and more. Also featuring fun pop culture and wrestling crossovers, listener Q&As, and extended discussions about wrestling topics past, present, and future. Now, here's your host, Kelsi.
Hi, and welcome to Two-Faced Wrestling Talk. I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Paul.
Yes, you are.
I don't know why that made me laugh.
Somehow you're already drunk and you haven't even had a sip of your beer yet.
I had 2 little sips.
Oh,
There's no way I'm drunk,
well,
though.
Maybe. And what beer are you enjoying, by the way?
My last pumpkin shipyard.
Oh.
From Boston! It's like my favorite place in the whole world now. Chicago is number 1. Sorry, Chicago, you've dropped 1 notch. Boston's my fave place now.
Drinking out of your Tequesta Brewing Company glass, which you'll be partaking of next week when you go to Florida.
Yep, we're going to Florida.
Nope. No beer for me this week. I'm drinking a little Buffalo Trace bourbon, courtesy of a buddy of mine. A little thank you gift. And
whatever, snooze.
Thank you. Delicious.
Pretentious. Whatever.
Pretentious, delicious, whatever.
Whatevs.
All right. Let's get to some things we want to mention before we get into it, and we'll start with Patreon.
Yep, you can find us at patreon.com/superkickinit. And I do want to apologize. October, I barely posted. So you guys who are listening who are Patreons, thank you for sticking with us. Sorry about the lack of posting. I will get back to it very shortly. And for those of you who are not Patreons but are interested, check out the levels. There's lots of different levels, including one where we talk a lot about beer, where for $5 a month you get to see all of our beer travel. There's a beer list on already posted up on there, all the different breweries we've been to, and gosh, I think it's numbered to about 89 now, maybe 90.
Got 2 new ones in Baltimore while we were up for Full Gear. We got
I didn't write those down yet, so we might be at 91 now.
Heavy Seas Brewing and what was it? Crooked Crab.
Oh,
Brewing
yes.
Company.
Yes.
Which I bought a shirt from, which was actually very cool.
Yes. I wish I would have bought something, but I was trying to hold back.
But, yeah, please support us on Patreon. And, again, Kelsi's schedule is going to permit maybe some more content coming your way in the weeks and months to come.
Hopefully, yes.
Remember to please rate us on iTunes. It helps us out. So if you can't support us financially, that's another way you can support us and help us get the numbers and support we need.
Yeah, leave us a rating and a review. I know that it's easy to just leave a rating, but if you go an extra step for us and leave a review, that entices other people to check out our show, and that really would help out quite a bit. Because as you guys know, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and that's not an exaggeration. There's hundreds of wrestling podcasts out there, and the only way people can find out which ones that they actually want to listen to is by sometimes just reading reviews and researching and stuff. So if they see some positive reviews, they might say, hey, I'll check this show out. So thank you guys if you decide to do that. That'll really be awesome, and we're really grateful if you do that.
There's hundreds of wrestling podcasts, but there's only one wrestling travel site that matters. That's wrestlingtravel.org. Our good friends and supporters, and of course last week at Starrcast, we interviewed Dave Hancock, and you heard that interview last week on the show.
Yeah, Dave Hancock's such a nice guy, very knowledgeable. Not only a big part of Wrestling Travel, that organization, but he's also the guy behind the computer screen at the keyboard for Starrcast. He runs the social media there, so pretty cool that we got to talk to him. If you guys missed the interview, it's on last week's episode. Check that out. But more about Wrestling Travel, they've got amazing travel packages to all kinds of events. Not only did they have a travel package to Full Gear, which just happened, but they'll have ones coming up for Wrestle Kingdom, WrestleCade, and also, of course, they've got WWE events too, like WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble.
And before we go any farther, one other thing. Next week, we're actually going to take the week off. Go visit my parents. And
it's your fault we're taking the week off. Yes. No. But it's just going to be too crazy.
And it's Trace's fault. Our buddy Trace is coming into town as soon as we get back into town. So there just wasn't going to be time to do it next week. And next week, obviously, is kind of a light week, even though we have the build-up to Survivor Series and War Games. We'll talk a little bit about that in this week's show. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. So just 1 week off.
Just one. Hopefully you guys will still stick with us and tune back in 2 weeks' time.
But now it's time to give our opinions on the latest wrestling shows, news, and developments. It's time for headlines. And we're going to start with the show that you were at in Baltimore, Full Gear. Before we even get into it, what was it like being there? And after you've watched it on TV, how did it translate?
Well, one, people might be confused as to why you weren't there. You had to leave early. So it was just me at the pay-per-view, although you were at Starrcast and in Baltimore with me for some of the days. But yes, at the pay-per-view, that was me, live, in person there. It was awesome. And let me say this. I heard lots of comments, people saying, man, the crowd is low. But I gotta say, it was loud in there. Really loud. The opening of the show, people were jazzed up, and I think one of the loudest parts was when Jericho came out and his song played, Judas. That's one of my favorite songs right now. For some reason, I'm like obsessed with that song. But like the whole crowd, the whole arena seemed to be singing it. I don't know if it was just because I've been to other shows, obviously, where they play Jericho's music. Like we were at Double or Nothing and they played it, but it just didn't seem like people were singing that much. It seemed like the whole place was singing the song. It was really loud in there. So yeah, I guess it was just an illusion. I thought it was a rowdy crowd and really fun to be there live. And I gotta say, man, we'll get to it when we talk about each match, but Moxley and Omega, lots of people don't like it, but I loved it. It was awesome in person, but I gotta say, I had to go back and watch it to really get the whole scope of the match and really to appreciate it fully.
Well, let's start with the first match of the main show. Of course, Britt took on B. Priestley in the pre-show, but the first match of the main show was the Young Bucks versus Proud and Powerful, and I don't know how it compares to the match on the cruise ship. I imagine it was better because it was longer, but man, this was a good match.
The match on the cruise ship was better because I feel like it was better than this match. I feel like the match on the cruise ship was more serious. There were parts of the Young Bucks Proud and Powerful match that I thought, Proud and Powerful, it was weird. They were really overselling like to a comedy type of level. Especially Ortiz. Like, I love Ortiz, but he was like flopping over and you said it reminded you of old school Ric Flair in a way.
Very Ric Flair-esque with the just as Rick used to take 2 steps forward and then just fall flat on his face. Ortiz kind of did the same thing, except he did this weird shimmy and shake thing before he fell on his face.
And, I think there's a reason behind, the somewhat of a comedy angle in the match. It's because I think they know they're going to meet up more than once. And we saw that when we talk about Dynamite. We saw the beatdown and the confrontation that they had again. So obviously they're going to continue to face off and probably are going to have another bigger, longer match, I would assume, at another big show. But back to this Full Gear match, I feel like, maybe they knew, okay, we still got to save some of this stuff up. Whereas on the cruise, I feel like they didn't even know if they would ever face each other again because at the time, Bucks were in Ring of Honor, LAX, now Proud and Powerful, but then LAX was with Impact.
Right.
So it was a cross-promotional dream match, and nobody knew, is this going to happen again? So I think they kind of went all out on the cruise because of that reason. So it's unfair to compare, but I'm biased. I love the cruise match, but this was great too. I just got to say, there was a lot of good spots. I loved how Matt launched over the turnbuckle and flipped to the outside. That was one of my favorite early on parts of the match. Thought that was wonderful. Any parts stuck out to you?
Well, first off, we mentioned Ric Flair earlier. I made the comment, if you're old school, you remember that Charles Robinson was like Ric Flair's personal official. It seems like Rick Knox is the Young Bucks' personal official. He officiates every one of their matches. So We'll start calling him Rick Robinson or Charles Knox or something. They're a melt of personalities.
So not Mike Knox, like JR.
But not Mike Knox.
On I think it was Full Gear he said it. Ridiculous.
The couple spots that stood out to me in this, one was the combo camel clutch and Boston Crab.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I thought that was really cool. And then I thought Matt Jackson's suplex sequence, where he kept holding on and rolling over. And remember, a couple times he was rolling over two of them. Yeah. I thought that was one of the coolest, because obviously we think of the Jacksons as high flying, but this was showing like a powerful side that I thought was really awesome.
And this is another match. I think Nick has done this before, where he goes to kick the person and he kicks the ring post instead. So Nick was selling his leg throughout the match after that happened. And I feel like the Bucks have done this before. I like when they do a selling angle, because they don't always.
Because it was Matt's back for a long time.
It was. And before that, they didn't do a lot of body limb selling or anything like that, or any kind of body part selling for a majority of the match until Matt started doing the back stuff. And then again, Nick had done a leg thing before. Now it's nice to see it again, because I think it adds another layer of story to the match. And obviously, we know the result. The Bucks didn't win. So this gives kind of like a reason behind that, not just they're weak and can't take on Proud and Powerful. They still kind of look good, and like there's a reasoning behind things and the way things played out.
I thought it was also funny, the Ortiz losing his suspenders coming undone.
His pants were basically completely loose.
Doing his suicide dive while holding on to the pants. That was pretty funny. As you mentioned, Proud and Powerful got the win, but almost stealing the show was what Rock and Roll Express did at the end, and Ricky Morton in particular.
I feel like that was the best part of the entire match. I mean, the Canadian Destroyer.
Yeah.
That was just incredible. Like, it looked flawless. So it was a great angle by the camera, for one, but it just well executed, because stuff could have gone wrong with that. And even I was at the post-show media scrum. Tony Khan said, like, I'm just happy that it all worked out, that it looked good, that the Rock and Roll Express were happy, the Bucks were happy, because the Bucks really wanted them involved, of course. The Bucks had that whole idea, apparently, Tony said, to have them even involved in the match, which makes sense because they're longtime fans of Rock and Roll Express. So yeah, they both got involved. I think the Canadian Destroyer was the best part of the whole match. And that had nothing to do with the two tag teams, in a way. It was obviously the third tag team that wasn't even in the match.
Other good matches, we're really not going to get too in-depth with them, but Paige beating Pac was really good. And this was the first time in the match, or in the show, and this became a recurring theme between the two of us. JR's obsession with the officials. Are they grabbing the ring rope? It was just nonstop about the, they're not doing the rules. They need to do the 4 count. It was like enough. But the obsession over the ring rope in particular was ridiculous.
I miss matches where I don't hear about the rules.
Right.
The whole match. Like, just let it play out. You're not supposed to call attention to the flaws of logic when you're a commentator.
Right.
And I know we've kind of criticized JR in the past, but this was to another level during this pay-per-view, I feel like, because he has done where he's kind of talked about the rules on other shows in AEW. And yes, I know AEW is kind of putting out there that they want to emphasize rules and being like sports-like and
but they're
being
clearly
real.
Not in the matches. It's the same. That's the thing.
Regardless of not if they want it to be more fair and real and like real sports, like you don't call attention to the flaws in logic. Even if that were the case, JR doesn't need to say he wasn't tagged in, he's not holding the rope. You don't. Even if you're trying to present the product like that, you don't call attention to when it doesn't look like that. That's the opposite of what you want to do. So to me, if he's trying to sell it like that, he's actually doing the whole promotion a disservice by kind of calling attention to that it's not being actually presented like a sport. That it's failing in that respect, apparently. So I don't know. I just didn't like the way he just kept emphasizing it, and it went throughout the entire show.
Yeah, it totally did. Again, we won't get in depth, but Paige beat Pac, Spears beat Janela, SCU beat Lucha Brothers, and Private Party. Individual moments that stood out from those matches. Obviously, the Pac brainbuster on the chair was unbelievable.
That was scary looking, intense looking, and also at one point in the match, Paige had a stinger, and part of his body seemed like it was going numb a little bit, and that was a little scary. But he got a big win over Pac there, I think.
You're right. Right.
Although you criticized them saying how big of a win it was. You're like, they're acting like this is like the end-all be-all. But it is a big win because Pac had so much momentum going into this, and he had such a good record. And Paige that's a much-needed win, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then they turned around and erased it the next night.
Yeah, well, that is true. But we're just talking about in this context. At the time, we didn't know that he was going to just go back and lose the next night.
Right, at that time, we didn't know they were going to go all WWE and have the same match the
That
next
was weird
show
that they
after
did
a
that.
pay-per-view,
Yeah,
which has always driven me crazy. The Spears-Janela match was... oddly, with no build-up, a pretty good match. And again, there were matches or points there when Spears caught Janela's crossbody and power slammed him to the floor. I thought that looked awesome.
To me, when Tully gets involved and does the spike pile driver, I think that was my favorite part of the match. Yeah. It really kind of brought it from an okay match to a really good, entertaining match. To me, that made the difference. Otherwise, I think that could have been on the pre-show.
Oh, yeah,
and
I agree.
B and Britt could have been in that spot.
I agree with that.
Because to me, the Tully part, in my opinion, saved it. Just because I love Spears and I really love Janela, but like you said, it had no build, no really reason. Another cool part is Janela's hair just hanging off the flipping rope, the ring rope. Oh my God, that was so... As a girl, when your hair gets like tangled up and like you've got a ponytail in and you have to pull it out, it effing hurts.
Yes.
If you don't have long hair, guys, or whatever, trust me, it's not pleasant getting your hair pulled out from like a ponytail. It's essentially what happened because his hair was tied up.
Right.
Pulling it out.
Another example of where cheating occurred with the ring rope, where Spears tied Janela's hair into the ring rope.
Yes.
In the SCU match, Ray Fenix never ceases to disappoint. When he did that, and it was kind of off camera, you only kind of caught it.
The walking.
Sky was going to do a flip over the rope, and Fenix walks down the rope and kicks him out of the air. I thought that was so cool.
So now you're saying it the way you think they want you to say it.
Well, they're saying it that way, so I'm going to
say it my old way because I can't pronounce anything right. I'm just going to say Phoenix. So you can say Fenix, I'll say Phoenix. One of us will be right. So we have it covered.
And then the end of the match was the other cool moment where Lucha Brothers attacked SCU, and then another Pentagon came.
Another. And they kept saying Trace because I think, like, it's funny, this is not the first time someone dressed as Pentagon. If you guys remember back at, I think it was All In.
It was.
Jericho dressed as Pentagon. So that was kind of cool. So this is the third time that someone's dressed as him, but this time it was Christopher Daniels. And you loved it because you thought he looked just so much like Pentagon.
They did such a great job with the makeup and everything. He looked a lot like him. I thought it was awesome.
And another thing to note from the post-show media scrum was Daniels talked about wanting a singles title. Like, he's not really going to try to be in the tag team with Kazarian and Sky, and that's kind of cool because somebody asked about the Freebird rule, and like Daniels was like, no, that's their thing. I want to go get a singles title.
Well, it's interesting, and we're going to promote this throughout the show. Kelsi interviewed SCU at Starrcast, and Christopher Daniels made a point of, I don't want to be in this interview. I'm not here.
He said, I'm not supposed to be here.
Right.
So
we had no idea what that meant at the time.
No, like, we didn't even give a thought to it, but we should have right away been like, is something going to happen at the pay-per-view? I didn't even think about it. I was just too worried about getting interviews. But yeah, he stepped away.
Make sure you check out that interview on WrestlingNews.co, and we'll be saying that a lot throughout the show because you had some great interviews from the Charm City. 9
interviews total. I'm very proud of all of them. I guess you could say 9.5 if you count that MJF came in and crashed my Colt interview. So technically, convos with 10 wrestlers, but really 9 separate interviews. So I really, really loved how they all came out. Again, Paul just said at WrestlingNews.co, the website has them all. If you look under AEW on the little tab at the top, you could find all the articles. Just go scroll down a bit. But you could also search for them on YouTube. Wrestling News Co., all one word. Their channel should pop right up. And look out because I'll be doing a lot more on their channel in the future. So if you want to follow my content, it's a good idea to subscribe, and I would really appreciate it.
Moving on, Riho retained, and so that led us into Jericho versus Rhodes. I love the little touch of Jericho with the weight belt that said Le Champion.
And I didn't even notice the weight belt or him, like, anybody motioning to it or noticing it, because obviously it was kind of far away. I didn't notice that live in person.
Right.
So that was something that when we rewatched it, I was like, oh, cool, I'd never noticed that. I thought that was a wonderful touch.
Of course, another one of the iconic moments of the show was a botch as Cody goes over the top and goes head first into that ramp.
And honestly, like, the way they shot it doesn't even show the brutality of that move, of him missing and stuff. And, like, basically, from my seat, it honestly looked like he could have broken his neck. Like, it was scary. Everyone gasped, and we're like, oh my God, and he was busted open right away. Some people next to me were still questioning, though, whether or not he bladed, but there's just no way. It was instantaneous. I just don't see how that could have been possible with the timing of when you saw the blood and everything. It was really, really scary, the landing, I gotta say. Yes, it looked bad on TV, but you guys can't even imagine it. It looked like 10 times worse seeing it in person from the angle I was at.
Well, and the question I had is obviously that part was a botch. Was he supposed to miss at all? Or was it all a complete botch? I think he was supposed to miss Jericho, and then they were going to play that up as something Jericho was going to work off of. But then it became more because he literally lands forehead first on the ramp, and that gash over his right eye was deep and brutal.
Yeah, and for a while, he was kind of with the doctors trying to make it stop bleeding. Jericho, man, this is another reason why he's one of the greatest. He just rolls with the punches. He goes and gets a chair, you don't know why, and he just sets it up and waits in the ring like, come on, man, I'm waiting on you.
Yeah, I'll be ready for you.
Such a cocky heel thing to do. God, he's one of the best of all time.
I like he goes over to confronts Cody's mom, and Cody's mom slaps him pretty good.
It says F you.
Yeah.
That was the greatest. Mom power. That was awesome. Like, I don't know if my mom would do that to somebody, but it's pretty great. I guess if they were threatening me, she would.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too, but she's too nice.
Jake Hager and MJF started battling outside. That started a little, outside chicanery, distracting the ref. And Jericho would use the white belt on Cody.
That was brutal and awesome. But let's back up because you just mentioned ref. I love Aubrey standing up to Jericho.
Oh, yeah.
And she literally pushes him because he pushed her.
Right.
And she's trying to make him listen. Like, listen to me. I'm the ref. I just love how, they're giving her a chance to ref these big matches. And they're making her stand up. Like, they're having her stand up to the wrestlers. I just love the way she interacts with the wrestlers on camera. It's so great. It really is well done.
Thought that Cody was going to win when he hit Crossroads, and then Jericho kicked out of it.
And then the look on Cody's face.
Yes.
It was priceless.
And then Jericho, I thought this was a cool little touch, too. I've never seen him do this. When he put the lion tamer on Cody, he extended his one foot and was like stomping on Cody's face, making it look extra brutal.
And he cinched it in so flippin' much.
Yeah.
Like, he got so low. And obviously, knowing the finish now, it makes sense that he got that low.
Right.
To make it look as brutal as possible and as tense as possible, to make it look realistic to why MJF would even throw in the towel. So that really worked out quite well. But before we get to the whole ending and what happened, actually, it's about the ending. So the ending, you see him throw in the towel, and you're like, oh, man, of course that makes sense. Because I was wondering, how is this going to play out? Like, it's too early, I think, personally, for Cody to have won the title. And Jericho is such a big name, it's kind of like they need him with the title for a little longer. I was like, how are they going to work this out? Because of that stipulation. I really thought in my head, there's no way that Cody's going to stick to the stipulation if he loses. There's no way. Well, this is a way of getting around it. But even further so, not only because Cody didn't really lose.
Right.
Somebody else gave up for him.
Right.
That's one excuse to go back on the stipulation. Another is that basically MJF betrayed him and kicks him in the balls.
Yeah.
And now they're going to start their much anticipated feud. And that'll be great too because it'll give Cody something to work on instead of challenging for the title again right away. So all of it really makes great storytelling sense. But let's go to the only line of JR's that you liked during the night.
Well, look, we pick on JR for certain things. When he reacts to the low blow from MJF and he's like, you little bastard. That was classic JR, just angst. And, you could picture him doing it when Stone Cold turned or whatever.
Yeah.
That was classic JR. When we talk about the nostalgia of JR, that line right there was classic nostalgia JR. Now, is that enough to overcompensate for the rest of the stuff?
No.
Probably not. But that is why people still love JR, because they remember him being so upset about the atrocities that would happen in the ring.
Yes, I do love that about JR and old school JR for sure. And how about Excalibur kind of channeling his inner Ian Riccaboni? You piece of human garbage. That's so Ian, but Excalibur's the one who said it.
So Jericho retains, and we'll see where things go for him. And we'll move on to the Lights Out match.
The match of the night for me.
Oh, it was fantastic. Now look,
there's lots of people who don't like this type of match, though. Lots of people who are unhappy with it, including apparently Dave Meltzer didn't like it.
Yeah, and look, my buddy's like, that's not my kind of match.
Surprise. Iddings doesn't even like hockey anymore.
But
come on, Iddings.
It's like it would have been my kind of match at 25, but not now. I'm not into that, especially knowing what these guys are going through and stuff. I get that mindset, but
it's their decision, though.
Yeah, and look, it's not like they're doing it every match, so it kind of made it special because Omega and Moxley went all out in this.
They really did, and who I feel for is Omega. Yes, he's always known for having like the best matches on the card, the best matches to me personally ever. But I feel like he's not technically someone who always goes the hardcore route or hardly ever goes the hardcore route. No. So to see him do that, it was like extra painful to watch because just knowing Omega, I mean, heck, he looks so spent in regular matches. Now, these are matches that go long and that he puts his whole heart and body into, but like he just seemed even more spent than those type of matches in this match. Like just the way his head goes through that, I don't even know what that was, that AEW light-looking thing with the logo.
Like the display thing on the stage.
Yeah, his head, like, bounces through that, and just parts where you could tell his breathing is super labored. It just, to me, just the way Omega breathes, I think made this match even more effective when I watched on TV. I obviously couldn't tell that from the arena, but when we rewatched it, I was like, holy hell, man, he seems so, like, out of it and spent and stuff.
There were 25 things we could have wrote down during this match. So why don't we just go through back and forth all of these iconic moments from the match. I'll just read one, you read one, we'll just react.
Well, I want to make sure to say one of them specifically because it reminds me of a movie. Unless you want to go in order.
Yeah, why don't we
go ahead, go in order.
Unless I missed it in the notes.
No, it's you know what it is. Just don't say the one I want to say.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to read them. Right off the bat, the Kenny Omega flying dropkick over the railing.
Yeah.
Taking out taking out Moxley was awesome.
Yeah, don't read this one. See?
Okay.
That's the one I want to read.
Okay.
Okay. Well, go ahead. You do the next one.
These go hand in hand. Moxley brought out the barbed wire bat and used it on Omega. And, you always wonder with these barbed wire things, how sharp they actually are. But you saw Kenny's back, and it opened up when Moxley used the bat on him.
And I think the best part was when Omega takes out the broom with the barbed wire. And so it was like for revenge, he goes full cleaner. And I was like, this is the funniest part. Like in person, I was like, sweep, B, sweep. Like which would the be? I was like, sweep him. And he did. Do, 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 do. But I wasn't really yelling it too loud since I was sitting with the media.
Yes,
so I was
professional.
I was like, sweep him. Sweep him. It was ridiculous.
They brought in some other apparatus, a board that was covered in mouse traps. Moxley brings in a bag full of gold chains, and not like the kind that wrap around your neck, but big, thick gold chains.
Well, technically it did wrap around his neck at one point.
That's true.
But it wasn't like cool, like, bling and stuff. But, it was intense.
Yep.
So then there was all kinds of great stuff, but I love when they brought out the broken glass.
Oh, yeah.
And not only did Omega used a shard, but then he crushed up the glass and poured it out, and they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff like spine buster into the glass, and then Omega was basically trying to V-trigger Moxley over the glass, but actually slips in the glass.
Yep.
Because, obviously the mat's full of sharp objects and slippery objects, and he just loses his balance. And obviously, I think people were getting it in their hands. Super brutal. But I think my favorite part of the whole match was the bed. I don't know what you call it. It looked like a box spring.
Yeah, it looked like an old box spring.
Yeah, that's how wide it was.
Yeah.
Like a full size, or maybe even a queen size box spring full of wire. Oh my God, so intense. And the reason I wanted to read this part is because I really was reminded of the scene from Suspiria, if you guys have seen it. This girl is trying to chase this we can't see it. I guess we think it's a monster if you're the first time seeing it. You don't know what she's running from. She's going through this room. She opens a door, doesn't look down, and then falls into this room of wire. And the wire goes through, like, her whole body. And she's trying to, like, wiggle out of it. The more she tries to wiggle, the more she gets into it. That's what this reminded me of. So they literally do a suplex into the wire, and they're both in there, and they're, like, sunken in. Just like the girl in Suspiria, and they can't get out. But people have to come in and get them out. But we do think it was shaved down, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you couldn't make it insane. But...
because they'd be totally cut up.
Right, but they didn't... to me, it seemed like it was nothing. You know, it seemed like it was just wrapped up, which was still a cool visual. I don't begrudge them on that at all.
Well, that's why I liked it, because the visual was so cool.
Yeah.
Totally Suspiria.
But they ended up cutting them out after Moxley suplexed Omega onto it. Then Omega, as you mentioned earlier, does the V-trigger through the stage sign, kind of catches his own face on the edge of the sign, but they both go inside the stage, basically.
Then they start ripping up the ring. Oh my God, that was awesome. Literally took the padding off. It's just all you could see was the boards. And man, I mean, yeah, there was a few things like DDTs on the exposed ring and stuff. But the thing that I think was the craziest was Omega missing, like, basically, I think they said it was Kota Ibushi's move.
Right.
From the top onto the exposed ring. And it looked like he landed brutally, kind of like on his face.
Well, and I mentioned it during the match, and I've said this before, because a lot of people never actually get to see what the ring looks like. I'm amazed that the punishment these men and women take. When you look at what the ring, there's a thin layer of cloth, a pad that can't be 2 inches thick, maybe.
Yeah.
Over plywood.
It's insane.
And so you think about just basic body slams onto that. Not to mention all the crazy stuff. It's just... it gives you more appreciation of what these wrestlers do. Because
they're incredible.
It really is crazy to just be thrown down on your back, basically on some thin padding and plywood.
Wrestlers are incredible. They really are some of the greatest athletes ever, honestly. And people don't appreciate them, especially people who just don't understand what wrestling is. They get hung up on, oh, it's scripted, it's fake, quote. That's what people say. And it's just a shame because it really demeans what the wrestlers do and the risks they take and what they put their bodies through. So I have such respect for wrestlers.
Moxley ends up getting the win on an elevated paradigm shift, and that's the way the show ended. And so if you were to grade the show, what would you give it?
That's hard. I don't know. A B++, A-?
Yeah, I mean, because I didn't really feel like there was any part that lagged. Like we talked about, the Spears-Janela match.
That's the match, and then I didn't like the triple tag team match very much.
No?
There was parts that I thought were messy.
Well, those were the two matches in the middle, but overall, yeah, I think I'd go B+ to A- somewhere in there. I mean, it was a good show for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe had I not, I kind of lagged attention in those two matches. If that wouldn't have happened, it would have definitely been a flat A, for sure. But the reason why I kind of go back and forth with the B+, A- is because of those two matches, for sure.
Let's turn the page then and go to AEW television Wednesday night, AEW Dynamite. First match was Dark Order and Jurassic Express, and we got the return of Luchasaurus.
I was really happy to see that, but let me back up and say, I've been saying forever, Dark Order is awesome, and I thought they shined in this match. I thought that Evil Uno looked really great with his mask. I just feel like they looked better than they have been looking the past few weeks on TV. People have been bashing them, saying, Kelsi, how can you defend them? They're never going to get over on the main roster. Well, they got heat. They got some boos.
They got some
I
serious
loved Evil Uno's interaction and trying to get Marco Stunt to come to their side, and join the Dark Order and, presenting him with a mask, like the Creepers wear and everything. I just really loved that whole interaction after the match was over. I loved Luchasaurus coming in for the save. Just everything about that interaction, I think, did a lot for Dark Order. And obviously it did a lot for Luchasaurus because it was like he was the hero coming back to a really great ovation. People were really excited. In fact, they started chanting for him before he even came down. So.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about him not coming back till January, and he looked great. My only thing about the Dark Order, I could do without the Creepers.
That's what a lot of people say, but I really don't mind them that much. Now, I will say when they were formerly known as Super Smash Brothers, they didn't have these Creepers.
Right.
And they had amazing matches. But what I'm saying that they they excelled in was the mic part, the interaction at the end, but also their match was awesome. And once people see how great in ring they are, I think all of the criticisms will go away. And in fact, one of our interviews at Starrcast, we asked best friends about Dark Order and the criticisms Dark Order have been receiving, because they actually named Dark Order as one of the teams they want to face eventually.
Yeah, and again, that's another interview you can check out on WrestlingNews.co. Her interview with Trent Beretta and Chucky T, even though Chucky T was wearing a Sixers jersey, which appalled me, but as I wear my Celtics hat right now.
Yeah.
Moving on, and the match isn't quite as important. The Spears, Darby Allin, Avalon match, even though Janela attacked Spears, so they're continuing their feud, and then we got to see the awesome Darby Allin coffin drop again, but it's what happened after the match that's significant.
Well, yeah, he said he accepted Moxley's challenge.
Yeah, Moxley at the beginning of the show, after he had won, said, who's basically got the, cojones to take me on.
So I do want to mention that we actually talked a lot about, in the past, Allin and Joey Janela being able to showcase what they've done. They've really gotten a good spotlight, I feel like, not only in the first few pay-per-views, but specifically Allin, he's gotten highlighted on TV as well.
Right.
Not so much Janela, but they both have been able to showcase who they are, what they do, and there's somebody actually who hasn't been able to showcase his talents and what
craziness,
he does.
Yeah.
He hasn't even really begun to show who he is or what he can accomplish in wrestling, and that's Jimmy Havoc. And the funny thing is, I really enjoyed my interview with Jimmy Havoc. You didn't enjoy your interview so much because he was pretty mean to you. I don't know what you did to him, but
no, it's look. If you listen to the interview last week, he had just talked to Kelsi, who had asked some similar questions. Didn't realize it was for a different platform. He was a couple Stellas in, and I'm not Kelsi.
Started being mean to you, and later Excalibur.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
When they got in a confrontation.
So look, did it bother me? No, because I could tell from the first answer how it was going to be. And look, Jimmy Havoc is not the first athlete in my 25 years in the business that didn't want to talk to me. So I don't really take it personally. I thought the ending was good when I called him an a-hole.
And he laughed.
Because he knows he is.
Yeah. So that was really funny, but
your interview with him was great because
it lasted like 11 minutes.
And again, that's on WrestlingNews.co, and we're gonna play a clip of it. And you kind of ask him about that spot.
I asked him about having to separate himself from Darby Allin and Janela, who have a similar style, and I loved his answer. I think it was very telling. So check out what he had to say.
So you mentioned Joey Janela and Darby Allin. They kind of have a similar style, even though I think you're really at the top of the hardcore mountain. But do you feel like you have to differentiate from them? Like, how do you think you should stand apart from them?
I think the one good thing about AEW is everyone's different. Everyone's completely different. Like, no one's the same. And I think, like, I'm me. Like, I think I think I'm not as good a wrestler as they are, but I'm better at the hurting myself in stupid ways. Stabbing myself is always fun. But I don't know. I think a lot of wrestling is all about the situation you put in and like the storylines that happen. So it depends on what the situation is as to what we'll do with each other, kind of thing. But I think as long as we all stay true to ourselves, that's the most important thing. I think we all have so far. We haven't been watered down. I don't think AEW have tried to stop us doing anything we want to do, and they want us to be as creative as possible, and that's quite nice.
And it's just the beginning. I'm pretty sure you're going to continue to shine and show more of what you can do and who you are. So it's just the beginning.
We've only been on TV for 5 weeks now, or a month or something. So it's not, it's not a very long time. And I think they've been doing a good chance of getting all of us on shows. And it's nice when we're not needed for a week, we can sit at home.
So that part is interesting, and we hit on a lot of subjects, but it's interesting that you phrased it in the question about Darby Allin and Joey Janela, because as we mentioned, Darby Allin accepted the challenge to face Moxley, but Havoc had said
that he wanted to face Moxley.
He'll get his chance, by the way.
Well, of course he will, but the thing is, I just find it funny. My question was about, I was subtly asking, did he feel like they were kind of getting to shine more on TV than him? They were getting to be themselves more than him, and just getting over more organically than him? I was kind of subtly trying to like kind of ask that in a way. And his answer, as you guys just heard, made it seem like, no, we all get to shine. But yet, the person he wants to face, Darby's going to get the chance to face first. And how unique will it be if Mox has all these hardcore matches with everybody? You know, he's had one with Janela, he's had one with Omega, and now he's going to have one with Darby. So when it finally gets to Havoc, of course Havoc, it will be crazy. If people didn't like the Moxley Omega match, they'll hate the Jimmy Havoc, Moxley match. They'll hate it. But the point is, Jimmy Havoc has to wait yet again. Instead of getting to shine, that's a big caliber match, and Darby is way more built up than Havoc is right now. So I do think that Darby should be first. But it's just funny how he's like, oh no, we all have to get to show each other, but Darby's next in line to face Moxley, who's the person that, Havoc wants to face. But in all fairness, he said he'd face anybody, including Darby Allin and including Janela.
Right.
So he said he'd face them.
Moving on in Dynamite, MJF comes out during a Jericho promo, and look, I saw somebody quote this or say this on Twitter. MJF showed how good he is on the mic by going toe-to-toe with Chris Jericho, who's one of the best ever on the microphone.
I said that verbally when we were watching. I was like, oh my God, like Jericho's just like enjoying MJF in the ring. Like, he just sat back and like listened to him, and then they were having so much fun together, back and forth, Maxwell and Christopher, and back and forth, like saying each other's full names. Sounds like you want to join the inner circle.
Do you want to join?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I thought they were so good together, and look, I've said for weeks and months that MJF is one of the best characters on the microphone, and he proved it again. But you noticed a little trend here on the weekend.
I do. So, okay, at the pay-per-view, he crashes Cody's opportunity, basically crashes the match. Then he crashes Jericho's promo by coming in the ring and starting to talk himself. But most importantly, he crashes my interview with Colt Cabana at Starrcast. And I guess this was the most fun for me when he crashed my own interview. But let's hear what he had to say.
From everything else.
Doing an awful job. I'll take it over from here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with my dad, Colt Cabana. Colt, how you feeling today?
I'm great.
Please get out of frame.
But Kelsi does such a great job. Don't make her get out.
She's awful. Kelsi, you just hit me? Wait, all right, look, Four Eyes. If you ever touch me again, I will sue. Colt, how you feeling today?
Do you need a lawyer? I know a good one.
We both do. We're both Jewish.
Okay, yes.
So yeah, that was so funny because it was funny. We didn't go to MJF because we knew if we interviewed him, he was going to be in character. And then during Starrcast, Marco Stunt was on the stage, and MJF yelled from the balcony at Stunt and went downstairs to go confront him.
Yeah.
That's when we went to go interview Colt. And then it must have been when he came back up the stairs, he saw you interviewing Colt and was like, I'm crashing this, and it was gold.
It's actually the second interview of ours that he's crashed. He crashed the first interview at All In Starrcast. Not as hardcore. It was mostly when we gave the mic to a fan, like one of our followers, and he came up and just started talking.
Yeah.
So that was the first time. So this is the second time. But I got my revenge a little. He still called me Four Eyes afterwards, but I hit him with a piece of paper. Now everyone on the internet singing Kelsi versus MJF with a piece of paper. And also I actually said, no, let's do a stipulation here. A rock, paper, scarf match. The Rock would be the ref, of course, because that's The Rock. And then obviously my piece of paper versus his flimsy scarf. Who will win? I don't know. I'll give him the leg up. He has more experience. But I don't know. Piece of paper is a little bit better than just a scarf like I'm wearing. Flimsy. I can't do anything with this. But anyway, it was so much fun. That was one of my favorite parts of Starrcast. And you kind of undersold how much we didn't want to interview MJF because he was in character. Like, we were there. Nobody was really set up yet, but MJF was. And you're like, well, MJF's here. I'm like, no, we're not getting him. He'll just stay in character. And we literally, like, ran away to avoid him.
And look.
And he still crashed.
I pretty sure, because the setup up top was Colt, if you're looking left to right, was Colt Cabana, MJF, and Sammy Guevara. And I could see out of the corner of my eye him eyeballing us when we were interviewing Sammy Guevara.
Like he wanted to crash then.
Yeah.
And we were lucky he didn't.
Or was mad that we hadn't talked to him, one or the other.
We purposely didn't talk to him. We were like, let's get away from him.
So when he went downstairs and then came back up and saw us interviewing Colt, he couldn't contain himself. And again, you can watch the whole interview, which is really long, and it's great stuff with Colt Cabana on WrestlingNews.co.
I mean, even MJF's question to Colt was like pretty intense.
But
that's a pretty good question.
But there's been some debate as to whether Colt was actually annoyed that MJF crashed, because he kind of defended you, and I'm sure he wasn't happy about the question.
I don't know. Like your friend Iddings, our good friend Iddings, said, you know, he looked annoyed.
Well, even your parents thought that.
I thought maybe Colt's annoyed with me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the pessimist in you, and that's ridiculous. Why would he be mad at you?
Well, if he wasn't then, he was at the end of the interview when I asked him, which do you prefer, Christmas or Halloween, because I forgot he was Jewish.
That's one of those ones when
even though I know he's Jewish.
That's one of those ones when I'm behind the camera, and I want to save the reporter I'm working with, because obviously I work on both sides of the camera. I've had it with other people I've worked with where you're just like, oh, I want to save you somehow, but you're in deep water now.
Well, we just cut that part out, but it was terrible. It was horrible. He forgave me though, and I know he's Jewish. I just was like so used to asking that question because I just asked it to Havoc and to Britt Baker. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go down the list of my little questions, and I was like, oh crap, he's Jewish, and then it was just a deep hole from there. But he was a good sport about it, like he always is. But like I said, I'm not completely convinced he wasn't annoyed with me, not MJF.
No chance.
I don't know. We don't know.
Continuing on.
People want to save me. Whatever. I don't need saving, B.
You did there.
Well, I saved myself later by cutting it out.
Yeah.
The power of editing.
Yeah. Well, you even doubled down by asking, okay, so Halloween. And he goes, no, Hanukkah.
I thought I could just like, you know, we could just like play off of it and be like, oh, Halloween. He's like, no, I love Hanukkah. It's like, sorry.
It's so good. On Dynamite, we talked about this, them going all WWE by having Paige and Pac go at it again with a rubber match. Pac came out on top. We saw the escalation of Proud and Powerful versus the Young Bucks. We talked about that earlier. That you had seen that on the cruise ship. You actually posted some video of the cruise ship fight, so make sure you check out Kelsi's Twitter on that.
At Super Kicking It, please check it out because it's pretty cool. I didn't even realize I had this footage, or I would have posted it before Full Gear. I thought, because there was parts of the cruise that these guys were doubling down on people taking video, especially that match. I didn't remember taking video because it was a cross-promotional match, and I would have thought that they would have been very protective of the whole match itself. So I was like, oh, no, they didn't let us film during that. Scrolling through my phone the other day just to go double-check, because I know it was last October, and I see footage from the match. I'm like, oh, crap, I did have footage from the match. So I hurried up and edited, like, 3 clips together. Now, there's an annoying light in the background, but I really think it's kind of cool, the footage. So check it out again on my Twitter at SuperKickingIt.
And obviously Proud and Powerful and the Young Bucks building to another big match at the next pay-per-view, I'm guessing.
Can't wait.
Finally, the headline match of the night was SCU versus Guevara and Jericho. Before we get into Sammy Guevara, I just want to say Scorpio Sky, to me, is quickly becoming one of the best wrestlers, certainly in AEW, maybe in the business. He's just so good.
So, you know, in the post-show media scrum, Tony Khan was talking about wrestlers that he had a lot of faith in, and he mentioned Trent Beretta. And this was right after, obviously it was after the pay-per-view, but it was also after last week's television, which we saw Trent have a singles match. I just have a feeling that they think the same thing about Scorpio Sky, that they think so highly of him, and they're like, you know what? This guy is something big for us, and we really believe in him. I mean, he's so tenured. It's not like he's a new guy on the block, but he's never really had that chance to shine. So him getting the pin on Chris Jericho, that's huge. And if it was New Japan, it would mean a title shot.
Right.
So, which it could still. I don't really know what it means in AEW. Did they say?
Not really, but they made a point that Jericho was mad that he was the one that got pins.
Yeah.
So I thought that part was funny.
Well, definitely, if it was New Japan, like I said, he'd have a title shot.
Yes, he would.
And it'd be cool if they kind of honored that and did that same route, because I think that could be a great singles match. And that could be on TV, too.
Yeah.
It could be the main event of, like, the next show.
Or a TV show,
yeah.
Meanwhile, Sammy Guevara in this match, as I mentioned a little while ago, we had a chance to interview him. and talk to him about a couple things.
I want to talk a little bit about your past. I feel like there's a lot of PWG flavor in AEW, from Rick Knox, from Excalibur, you. One of my favorite PWG moments, you and Walter. Just talk about those monster chops.
My chest hurts just from you saying that. I mean, that was the last match in Reseda, so that's a little notch in my belt. I didn't get the job done that day, obviously. My chest still hurts from talking about it. People are talking about the chops I took from Kenny and Hangman this past Wednesday. I'm like, nah, go watch the Walter match. That was a nightmare.
Those chops ain't nothing compared to what you already experienced.
That's right, but also, Walter, I'll go in and do a rematch anytime. Go and remove the little logo, NXT, WWE. I ain't scared of you. I want my damn rematch.
Cross-promotional dream match. I'm there for it.
All right, there we go.
So, Sammy, it's funny he mentioned that his chest still hurts, because that's what I was going to ask you to ask him, whether his chest still hurts, because that was still one of the most brutal chops I have ever seen in wrestling.
Didn't have to ask him, he just said.
Yeah, he just offered it up.
Yeah, so it must have really hurt for real.
He's so awesome, and I'm hoping he's going to get to show, we've said it before, what he did in PWG, because he's so good.
Yeah, he really is, and I think this is just the beginning for him. We've got to see a lot more, and I hope he gets a lot more time in the future, because he's just amazing in PWG. He was awesome. You guys got to go see that Walter match if you haven't seen it. It's wonderful, and as he said, it was like the last match in Reseda, so that's huge. He talked about that being a notch on his belt.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big notch, in my opinion.
It's a huge notch, for sure. And speaking of Walter, when we come back, we're going to talk NXT and WWE. Walter actually made a TV appearance on Raw, and Kelsi will share her tweet of the week.
Two-Face Wrestling Talk is proud to be sponsored by Wrestling Travel. Check them out on Twitter at Wrestling Travel. Also go to their website, wrestlingtravel.org, to find out about all the exciting travel packages. They also have a very fun Wrestle Kingdom travel package, which includes round-trip airfare, 5-night hotel near the Tokyo Dome, lower bowl tickets to both days of Wrestle Kingdom, and guided tours by Being the Elite's fat-ass Masa. Come on, who wouldn't want to hang out with Masa? I think that's like the coolest thing they offer. You get to have some time with him, meet him, interact with him. He'll literally be hanging with you, and you'd get to be a part of the first 2-day Wrestle Kingdom, which is going to be really special in my opinion. They also have travel packages to WWE events, including WrestleMania 36, which you can sign up for information at wrestlingtravel.org, and they've got packages to the Royal Rumble as well, plus other events too. Check out their website. There are USA travel packages, but also UK travel packages, so whether you live in the UK or where we live in the United States, you can find something for you. Also, don't forget they've got a friendly staff that can help you out. DM them on Twitter or contact them through their website.
Thanks, Wrestling Travel.
Our Two-Faced Wrestling Talk logo was inspired by Two-Face, the Batman animated series character, and his coin. The logo was designed by the talented and creative artist Eric Hudson. Eric creates wrestling-themed pieces as well as other pop culture art. He is also currently working on a Roddy Piper comic book. You can follow him on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dreaded Dinosaur. You can also support his work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/dreadeddinosaur. Please check out his work.
And now back to Two-Face Wrestling Talk.
So we talked AEW in extensive discussion in that first segment. Time to turn our attention to NXT and WWE. NXT kicked off their show with a really good cruiserweight match between Lio Rush and Angel Garza. And I know you're not quite on board with Angel Garza yet, but I think even you were impressed with him in this match the other night.
It was pretty funny how he went and took his pants off in front of his wife. But see, saying it out loud is way worse than what it really is.
Right.
Like when they said it on commentary, he went over there in front of his wife and took his pants off. I was like, oh my god, they made it sound 1,000 times worse than it really was. It was like not his real pants.
No, it was a Tai Chi thing.
Yeah, exactly.
He ripped off the outer pants to show off the tights.
Yeah, but just when they said it out loud, I was like, oh god, that sounds terrible.
The Garza kick to Rush as he was trying to hit his springboard cutter looked brutal because it folded Lio Rush up. That even you reacted to that move.
That was crazy. You know, I like that Leo Rush move to begin with.
Well,
so
yeah.
That was interacting with it, so that was a really cool little sequence.
And the other sequence that was really cool was those dueling headbutts.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good visual.
Lots of sweat, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And look, Garza has one of the prettiest moonsaults maybe in WWE right now, other than maybe Charlotte Flair's. I mean, his moonsault is awesome. But
Yeah.
Leo Rush able to retain. We got a square off between Finn Balor and Matt Riddle. And so with Gargano hurt, does Balor and Riddle happen at War Games? If so, does Riddle go out of the actual War Games?
No, I want him to be on the team.
Yeah, I hope they save the Balor-Riddle for a singles match down the road because
Yeah.
I want to see Riddle in War Games.
Yeah, but now Balor has nothing to do. You know, I have a feeling they're trying to go that direction. But it sucks because he was like all established with the team. Him and Keith Lee, you know, the bromance going. I'll never forget him singing along, Keith Lee, and like lip syncing when the Keith Lee part comes on during the song.
Well, even after the big square off, Keith Lee was in the ring and got on the mic, which he was great on the mic. But when he ended up challenging Roderick Strong, even Riddle comes up and takes his little vest off for him. He's like he's got a bromance with Keith Lee. It's funny.
It's awesome.
One of the coolest visuals of this show was when Roderick Strong tried to do a leap into Keith Lee, and Keith Lee did his patented double hand chop and just blasted Roderick Strong out of the air.
It was so loud. It like echoed through the building.
It was awesome. And then, of course, Undisputed Era got back involved. Finn Balor took out Matt Riddle. And when it all came down to it, Dijakovic came down and kind of showed his allegiance to Ciampa and Keith Lee. And so now...
It's like the reuniting of the Monstars.
I knew you'd be so happy about that.
I was. As soon as he came down, I was like, yes! I'm so happy. So we've mentioned it 1,000 times, but Keith Lee, and at the time he was called Dijak, they teamed together in PWG. They were called the Monstars. The Monstars are the bad guys in Space Jam. I know I've said it 1,000 times. If you go to Wrestling News Co. and listen to all my interviews, I do reference the Monstars match in 2 interviews, one with Excalibur and one with Chucky T in my best friend's interview. I talked about the commentary, how they talked about Space Jam for 20 minutes. That was during the Monstars match in PWG, where they talked about just the movie forever and, like, you know, who would face who basketball-wise. It was pretty funny. But to see Dijakovic come down and him and Keith Lee shake hands, I was like, yes, they're on the same team. And when they're on the same team, it's really flipping cool. That's why I'm so excited.
It's going to be awesome. And look, if Riddle goes out, if Velveteen Dream was healthy, you would think he'd go in there. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. War Games in general, it's starting... Well, actually, before we get to that, the women's War Games is kind of starting to take shape. We had a great ladder match.
Yeah.
Io versus Mia Yim. And boy, did Mia Yim take a beating in this match. Holy
she got
cow.
busted open. And then, God, the final part of the match where she just falls off the ladder onto another ladder, just the sound alone was like sickening and intense.
But when Io hit that springboard dropkick into the ladder into Mia's face, even before I saw her busted open, I'm like, boy, that looked like that hit her right in the face.
Yeah.
And it did, because she was gushing. And there was kind of, they didn't know what to do. And
that was a little awkward.
Yeah.
There were some awkward parts in the match, but overall it was really great. And man, they just went all out, essentially.
Yeah, Kaylee Ray, the NXT UK Women's Champ, interjects herself into the match, as you mentioned, pushes Mia Yim off of the top of the ladder onto a ladder on the floor, and that was just brutal.
It was scary, honestly. I was like, oh, where's she going? And you even said that might be like the most intense spot that a woman's done
in WWE, for sure. Now, look, I know there's been crazy independent stuff. I'm not talking about...
I mean in WWE.
But in WWE,
or at least in
NXT. Yeah. I mean, that was a brutal spot. It reminded me a little of WrestleMania in Orlando when the Hardy Boys hit Sheamus through a ladder. But that was just
in
like,
WrestleMania?
Yeah, but that was just like a drop kick through the ladder. This was her whole body going through the ladder. It was impressive that she took that. So now Kaylee Ray is going to join Shayna Baszler's team. So it's Ray, Baszler, Io Shirai, and Bianca Belair.
You know, it's a little weird, though, to see Bianca Belair on the same team as Shayna Baszler.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, they feuded for so long, and, like, look who's
Hi,
joined
Jackson.
us.
If you're watching us on YouTube, Jackson has decided to join.
Oh, and he's speaking into the mic.
Yeah, what do you got to say about Io?
Speak. Oh, gosh, he's sniffing it.
Yeah, he's going to eat it.
Don't eat it. He's into a chewing thing right now, the last 2 days. He's destroyed all of his toys.
Anyways, to continue the thought, so, yeah, it is a little strange, but Io's had her battles with Baszler, too, so it's all a little unique, and, you know, we'll see how War Games shapes up. I think
Bailey coming out, too. That was intense.
Yeah, which sets up the next night at Survivor Series, where she'll go against Baszler and Becky Lynch. And so,
what are you doing now? I don't know what's happening here.
our
Jackson has crashed the show.
Yes, Jackson seriously wants some attention. He's tired of us talking about wrestling. All right, let's switch from NXT to WWE's main roster and the news of the week.
Oh God, no! Help!
As Jackson crashes this show, CM Punk crashing backstage, and look. Even though we knew what had happened, we both kind of still thought, wow, what a cool moment to see him back on WWE TV. But it's interesting because I don't know how many people actually saw it live, because how many people are watching. Do we need to stop? Because you're not listening to me at all.
I am listening to you.
I know Jackson has got you hypnotized here, but... No, it's interesting that they did it on Backstage, and I get why they did it, because they want to drive people to that show. But I be willing to guess not a lot of people actually saw that live. They saw it on Twitter and couldn't believe what they were reading.
There's no way people... Because, like, the numbers for that show were so ridiculously low. That's why they did that. You know, there's no way anyone really, truly... I mean, how much percentage saw it? I think maybe 15% of actual, like, hardcore wrestling fans might have seen it.
I think you're...
Because it's a recap show.
Right.
People who are hardcore already watch the shows, for the most part, I think. And I could be wrong.
And they do a good job. You know, we watched a little of it knowing what happened. But, you know, they do a good job with the interviews, and they do some fun segments. Like, they had a comedian cutting a promo, and they rated his promo. So the show is entertaining, but it's not going to be must-see television by any means.
Now it might be. I mean, next week's numbers are going to go really high.
Yeah, they're going to go crazy. So,
but you know, I think the coolest part of the reveal was Renee Young's like smirk, because she was like the main one who knew.
Right.
Just the way she goes 3, 2, and like her face. I just thought that was the coolest part. And then Paige was like, "Is this a joke? Is this real?" I don't know. She had to have not really known, right?
I don't know.
That seemed like a real surprise to her.
It seemed like
unless she was acting. I mean, she could have been.
She could have been, but
it seemed real.
It seemed like a legitimate reaction.
The coolest part was seeing Joe next to CM Punk. And if you guys go look in our archives, of course, these are on Wrestling Inc. I think this particular episode that I'm talking about from our past, we talked about some Joe and CM Punk matches. Specifically, CM Punk's last match in Ring of Honor.
Right.
That's one of the ones. There was like a trio of great matches between CM Punk and Samoa Joe, and we talked about 2 out of the 3. So I don't know which episode, but I'll try to find it and tweet it for you guys, because we did some good analysis on that, and it's kind of cool to see them literally standing next to each other on the same show. Man, 2019 is wild, man. It's nuts.
It is.
For wrestling, at least.
So, I mean... Look, we never thought we'd see CM Punk on WWE television again. It's unbelievable that it has happened. You know, he's not going to get back in the ring. I think that's pretty much a safe bet. But
I'm just surprised it's not like AEW. He's friends with the Bucks. I mean, there's no political like web that he has to, you know, walk around. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's going to be the interesting part too. How honest is he going to be allowed to be?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is he going to have like a script to read?
Yeah.
I don't know.
If so, I don't see this lasting very long. If they let him be him.
Well, money is money.
Yeah.
But again, like, you know, there's all kinds of freedom in AEW apparently. So I'm just surprised. And like there's like a bad history. Even though a lot of people are pointing out that technically this show is not WWE. It's technically Fox.
Right.
So really, CM Punk isn't really shackled that much. But still, it is odd because it's about WWE. But whatever. I mean, wrestling fans are happy.
It's like they say in, you know, it's a common expression, but especially in wrestling, you never say never. Because we've seen some things happen that I never thought would happen.
Oh, this was one of them for me.
Yeah.
But again, he's not wrestling in WWE, and this isn't even a show on the network. It's a show about WWE on Fox.
Right.
Well,
right.
FS1 to be precise, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, on Raw, really kind of an uneventful week. Charlotte and Becky took on the Kabuki Warriors. I did laugh because it reminded me of our one of our favorites, Suzuki. Kairi Sane was hitting chops on Charlotte.
Yeah.
And she just kind of maniacally kind of laughed at saying, like, that's all you got kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it so
I saw that
reminded
clip.
me of Suzuki. And then I liked Shayna Baszler being ringside waving at Charlotte. I thought that was kind of funny. But, you know, just not a lot going on. Rollins took on Walter, which, you know, was...
Not really a one-on-one.
It didn't end up being... I mean, it started out as a one-on-one, and it was like, all right, cool, Rollins versus Walter. But then everybody from Imperium got involved. The one telling thing that I wrote down is that King clearly is not really into the NXT guys.
Yeah.
Because he said to Vic Joseph, the play-by-play guy, he's like, you know this guy? Like, because he didn't know who it was, kind of thing. So I don't like King being on this show if he's not going to, you know, it's kind of like his former partner that we were talking about in the other show. If you're not going to be involved and invested in the product and especially pushing the new guys, you know, what are you doing there?
Yeah, I agree.
Finally, the main event was Orton and Ricochet and Carrillo against the OC. A good King line there. Carrillo even makes tags look exciting. I thought that was a good line. And then Orton's look of disdain at Ricochet when Ricochet was getting beaten up. Like, you stink, dude. But really, a very, very uneventful week on Raw, except for the one thing that people are talking about. And so I guess that's part of the reason they keep doing this, but it's so terrible, the Lana segments.
I like how in the tease you said it's sunk even deeper. like the storyline's terrible.
It's terrible.
So just getting worse and worse every week.
Lana,
So
you know,
bad.
for the most part, held her own on the promo, but she got flustered multiple times.
She said all kinds of bad stuff. Like, the storyline's bad, her delivery's bad.
But she
says, you can go ahead and boove me. She said flippin' boove.
But she could have completely gone off the rails because the crowd was all over her. And she somehow...
The crowd wasn't that loud when she said, you're gonna boove me.
Yeah, they were.
No, they weren't.
Everybody hates that segment, it seems.
Whatever. I didn't think the crowd was that bad.
Yeah, well, I thought...
Or distracting. And one, it was terrible. She's spoken in front of Booze before.
Yeah.
When she was his valet and they got booed because they were saying, like, anti-USA stuff.
Yeah, but you could hide behind the Russian accent then.
I don't know. It's horrible.
It is
She
so
said the
bad.
boof thing. What else? She said a whole bunch of stuff wrong. One, Rusev's about to say, I'm pregnant, and then he says, you. You're pregnant? You're pregnant? It was weird.
It's all so bad. And then,
it's
of course,
awkward.
And then, of course,
God.
she wasn't really pregnant. And then Lashley comes out, and she has to say, can you believe he believed I was pregnant?
Then they kissed, and it makes me want to barf. So horrible. Because, like, it's so forced and terrible and just awkward. Like, I just feel the awkwardness coursing through everything. It was...
Yeah, no, it's not good. It's pretty bad.
One thing if the promo was great, but it really wasn't.
No. So we're off next week, so we'll briefly look ahead to Survivor Series, and this is obviously the first time Raw, NXT, and SmackDown will all go against each other. We got the Triple Threat Tag Match, which I think with Viking Raiders and the Revival, and why am I drawing a blank on who the third team is?
I don't even know any of these matches, so I don't know. I don't even know.
An Undisputed Era, duh. So you got that match. I'm really intrigued by the Shayna Baszler, Becky Lynch, and Bayley match.
I don't think we should look ahead.
Yeah. No, I think this is going to be an interesting Survivor Series with the three-way.
Yeah, but it's going
element.
to get a little convoluted. Like, we kind of alluded to with the NXT War Games show the same weekend.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's
man,
the problem. Yeah.
That's the thing. There's like all these teams. That's why you're drawing blanks every year.
Yeah.
Like,
Who's on what team?
show?
Who's going? Yeah.
What team? I don't know.
No, because you've got the War Games match, which is a multiple person match.
Yeah.
And then the next night you're gonna have a traditional Survivor Series match.
Too many teams to keep track of.
Yeah, it's
all involving some of the same people in terms of NXT.
If they're gonna have, and I said this last week, if they're gonna have NXT be a part of Survivor Series, they're gonna have to move War Games to a different takeover.
Yeah, yes. They're a different pay-per-view to accompany it, yes.
But as much as I bumbled that, Baszler, Bayley, and Lynch, is that one of the matches you're looking forward to?
I guess.
What about Brock Lesnar and Rey Mysterio?
Yeah, that would be good. I'm excited about that. The women's match should be great. I just don't like Lynch, So there you go.
Yeah, you're not a big fan of Becky
No,
Lynch.
but I'm a huge fan of Baszler, so.
And then we also have Roderick Strong versus Shinsuke versus AJ Styles. That'll be an interesting contrast in style. So at least it'll be, again, with introducing NXT into this, we'll get some different matchups, which is cool.
Yeah, it's exciting.
For the second to last pay-per-view of the year.
I just wish it wasn't the same weekend. I just can't get over it because it's so confusing story-wise.
Yeah. People are going to be fighting against each other, but with each other.
Yeah.
And, it definitely is a little confusing. But
so I'd be a little more amped if it was just another month that the takeover was.
Yeah.
It was separated a little bit. But it is going to be great. I mean, it is the most intriguing Survivor Series to me in a while. So.
Yeah, for sure. So looking forward to that. And, of course, we'll talk about that when we get back from our little 1 week hiatus.
Yeah.
When we're back with you in 2 weeks. But
it's hard to look ahead when we don't have the card. That's why you bumbled and stumbled.
Yeah, I didn't have the card in front of me. I
was hoping you wouldn't just ask, what are you looking forward to? And I'd be like,
and to be honest,
I don't remember.
And to be honest, as we record this, the cards are not completely set on either pay-per-view. So lot to be discussed and we'll discuss after the show, and hopefully both shows will be great despite the confusion.
People like reviews better than previews anyway.
Yeah,
no worries.
Exactly. You know what else people like? The tweet of the week.
I hope they like it. It's my favorite segment. Well, I've got a good one this week.
Well, you're people, so.
Whatevs. So this week it comes from Carl Anderson at Carl Anderson WWE. And first I've got to explain the tweet he's quote tweeting. So Ryan Satin tweeted out a photo of Matt Riddle flipping over the top rope. It's not from this week's NXT, it's from last week's. And this is when he barely got over the rope. It was pretty low.
Yeah. Well, he actually clipped himself.
Yes, he did clip himself. And that hardly ever happens. So, Carl Anderson tweets the tweet with the picture of him barely going over the rope and said, "For the first time ever, bro didn't get high enough." And then Matt Riddle quote tweeted that later and said, "It's funny because it's true." So, or something to that effect. I don't know Riddle's exact response, but that is Carl's exact tweet.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And
that is the tweet of the week.
Dead on.
Yeah. I love Matt Riddle, so anything to do with him, that's my jam.
Yep.
Randomly, he shouted out, this is unrelated, randomly Matt Riddle tweeted a picture of himself in purple and gold and said, "LSU, bro," because LSU just beat Bama not that long ago. I just find that, is he an LSU fan? What's going on? Why did he tweet that? And you're like, he's just being thematic. I'm like, I don't know. I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know the reason.
I don't have the answer for that.
Well, we need to find out. Somebody needs to find out.
Why don't you message Matt Riddle right now and see if
I wish. Then we could have an interview.
Yeah.
I would kill for that.
Yeah, me too. Before we leave, want to thank our Patreons as always.
Thank you guys so much, especially, like I said, for putting up with me and my lack of posting lately. I swear to you, I will improve. So thank you, Patreons, Jason Span, Nate at Psycho Nigiri, John at Big Paws on a Pup, Ant at Smark to Death, Charles Fitzpatrick, Nigel Coleman at Nacho Coalmine, Graham Bagshaw, of course, him and Mason at MGB Wrestling Pod, and Alex. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your support.
We appreciate your support, and we will be back with you, and hopefully you'll be back with us in 2 weeks when we will be talking about the results of Survivor Series, of course, talking AEW, NXT, and everything else.
Yep, again, thanks to our Patreons, but also thanks to you guys listening at home. It means a lot to us. Until next time, that's it for us. That's the finish.